Okay, so we're going to drop a little information about being empathic, a nudge on the primal brain, and then we're going to workshop activations again, since they're kind of the cornerstone of the work, so that we can be using them and consciously using them. And whew, I'm just going to let myself feel what's coming through. Give people a few more minutes to step back in, a few more seconds to step back in. So, when I finally admitted that I was empathic, I thought it was like unusual. I'm like, oh, I'm different. I'm empathic. That's unusual, and I didn't like it, actually. Like it as much as I loved, like, when I was in a graceful moment and I could like figure out the right thing to say, I felt so on. But generally, I felt pretty swamped and annihilated, overwhelmed, anxious, kind of terrified of how sensitive I was. And so, like, I realized everything that I didn't want, which is, and I also thought it was like somehow being this sensitive and intuitive was going to launch me into being crazy, really crazy, like either so swamped and overwhelmed or really crazy. And the only thing I really knew about being empathic in the beginning of my self-understanding was that I was the cosmic sponge of the world, and that I just was constantly taking on everybody's everything. And not only that, but everybody was dumping it on me. So, like, not only was I doing it myself, but it was coming to me. Like, I just felt like I somehow was this person that everybody in the world would go to and be like, blah, not that I'm not not still that for a lot of people, but it was like a different kind of thing that I was finding myself in, because I was in all these places with toxic energy, and I was feeling like I'd walk away toxic and everybody else would sort of be fine. But why was I walking away like that? So I had a lot of misunderstandings, I think, or fears about being sensitive or empathic. And I'm really it as something I didn't want, and that was maybe wrong with me. And again, even though I had graceful moments where I could tell that being plugged in the way I plug in was helpful, they were few and far between that I was aware of. I kind of have a different understanding now. And I got something that feels important to know, like, and first of all, I got that, like, every single human is empathic. Like, every single human being on this planet is empathic. Every creature is empathic, but every human. And really, 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 the way I know this is because we don't get to be a body without being completely merged and fused in another body. Like, we don't get here without that. Even if you form the little pieces in a petri dish, you still need to be in someone's belly in order to be gestated and then birthed somehow, and even that, even in the petri dish, it takes humans. Like, we have to put things together with human hands, and there's no accident here. We're formed from the tissue of other single human beings means that every single one of us is always interpreting, touching, connecting to the sensations and vibrations of other. So the activation we're going to play with this morning, and I'm not going to go all the way into it, is one that's about activating what's not ours. And the reason we do that is because it's so natural to be empathic and to absorb everything. It's actually more natural to do that than not. And I can remember this conversation with my dad maybe 10 years ago, and being at his house with my dad and my stepmom, and they were like, we're not empathic. That's something you do. We don't even get it. Like, we don't feel anything. I don't know what you're talking about. We're not sensitive. We don't go in rooms and notice anything. And we had this experience, and I thought it was pretty cornerstone. Walking where they live in this independent living kind of elderly, like, community, really. And so we're walking to go have lunch at the place at that point when it wasn't COVID and you could all be in the same dining hall together or something. So we're walking in, and as we get there, I'm really feeling my stepmother start ramping up, and she's starting to go into this like intense download of like all the annoying people that we were about to meet. And I was like, huh. So she's going on and on and on about my dad's like just sitting there, And we go into the building, and immediately I'm like, what is going on in this place? And then she pulls me aside. She's like, well, so-and-so is mad at so-and-so. And then this administration is doing this. And these people bought their house from that person. And when the organization itself was on fire because people were complaining, but everybody looked really nice. Honestly, it was like this peaceful, sweet brunch. Everything's laid out. My dad starts to get ravenously hungry and goes and fills up his plate with food, and it's like going on. My stepmother's going on and on and on in my ear, and I'm like, all right, you all, you don't feel a thing, I can tell, and then we sit down and we all eat. And I'm like, okay, I gotta like take care of myself here because this is a nightmare. People are really angry all over the place and not dealing with it. And so the whole lunch, my stepmother is just like bitching at my dad and bitching at me and smiling at everybody and having great conversations and coming back and like out of the corner of her mouth. And my dad is shoveling food in at like a million miles an hour. And we leave, of course. And as we leave all the way home, she just gets louder and louder and louder and louder and goes into the house and drops something and smash, bang, something happens. And she feels better. She's great. We're home now. It's all done. After something smashes on the floor. And my dad is like, oh, I feel really sick. I think I'm food poisoned, like, and within 15 minutes he pukes, And I was like, you guys aren't empathic. I can see it. Like, okay, wait a minute. We all do this. We all process energy. We all process emotions. We all feel things. Like, we're not doing it. Whether you want to say I do it and do some quirky activation and be Gabriele, or whether you want to say you don't do it and throw up instead, we're all doing it. So how many times have you gotten sick after being in a toxic environment and thinking that, not knowing what that is, right? How many times do we do that? And so like, it's so clear to me that we all process energy no matter what. And that in order to be alive in a body, we do this. This is part of what we do. Some of us are more sensitive. Some of us are more plugged in and tuned. Some of us are meant to, based on our soul speak, take this gift and use it differently, right? And that's what we do with it. That's our job, like that's how we show up. Job meaning like our contribution. And some of us don't and won't notice it and won't care, but it's not that we don't do it. So being empathic is part of our nature. It's part of who we are, and to learn that and to understand it and to learn skills for managing that is really helpful, because otherwise we're taking on things through the body that might be too toxic for the body to handle. And if we can learn how to process energy using our body, but not through every bit of ourselves, we may actually be able to show up a little more healthfully, right? A little more safely inside of ourselves in this world. And so we'll talk about that activation this morning, because that dovetails for me the way we work with the primal brain, which is that from the second you're conceived, you're organizing around someone else's reality. You're in their body. From the second you're conceived, you're organizing around someone else's reality. And you're adapting and compensating so that you can stay alive. We know from the minute we're conceived, we know that we can be wiped out in a split second. That same person that we're trying to figure out how to organize around has the power to annihilate us. We all know this. Our life and death is that imminent all the time. So in the survival brain, we're always looking at like, what are the best ways to survive in this moment? What do I need to do in order to be safe here? It's always happening in every human. And so we'll look at these facets, and we'll look at the what's not ours facet. How do we carry and process each other? Like, what can we do to know what is information I need to have versus when am I just using my body in a way that's harmful to myself? When am I just being injured by my skill or my gift, right? And how do I know the difference? And so we'll play in those this morning. Any questions just on, I know we're going to get into it deeper in a minute, but anything just on that feels like you want to name or say or have a question about? Okay. So activations, did everybody actually have a chance to listen to last month? Did we all get a chance to listen at least to last month's recording, or not listen to it if you were in class, either be in class or listen? As everybody was either in class or listened, right? So the people who weren't in class, did you all get a chance to listen? Because I want to go on that backdrop, but I don't want to make an assumption. Good, thanks. Okay, so some of that's just going to help me in the breakout rooms. What I want to do is, and I'm going to let Chloe take over from here, if that's generative for you, Chloe, just to nudge us into this conversation about activations. And then what we can do with that is that we can then put you in a breakout room and let you workshop it a little bit, and then we'll come back and do some more work on that.